He went missing, then was found dead. The Quawan Charles case. The case of Quawan Charles is one that immediately drew attention, not just because of the outcome, but because of the sequence of events that led up to it, and the questions that followed afterward. It begins in October 2020 in rural Louisiana, where Quawan Charles, a 15-year-old boy, was reported missing after being picked up from his home without permission. A detail that from the very beginning shifted the situation from concern to urgency. According to reports, he had been taken by individuals known to him, and when his family realized he was gone, they expected a quick return, or at least communication, but neither came. Instead, hours turned into a full day, and what started as a missing persons situation quickly escalated into something far more serious. When his family reported him missing to authorities and began searching for answers on their own. What happened next is where the case becomes deeply troubling, not only because of the outcome, but because of how events unfolded in the time between his disappearance and his discovery. Quawan's body was found days later in a rural, water-filled area near a sugarcane field, a location that immediately raised questions about how he got there and what happened in the hours leading up to his death. The condition in which he was found became a major point of public attention and concern, with family members and community advocates questioning whether the injuries observed were consistent with drowning alone or if something more had occurred prior to his body being placed in that environment. These concerns were amplified by images that circulated publicly, leading to widespread calls for a deeper investigation and greater transparency. Authorities later stated that the cause of death was consistent with drowning, but that conclusion did not fully resolve the concerns raised by the family and community, particularly regarding the visible condition of his body and the circumstances under which he went missing in the first place. The individuals who had picked him up reportedly told investigators that he had asked for a ride and that events unfolded from there, but their accounts, like many in cases with limited direct evidence, left gaps that were difficult to reconcile. Questions persisted about where he had been during the time he was unaccounted for, what interactions took place, and whether there were moments where intervention could have prevented the outcome. The investigation also drew attention to how quickly the case moved from a missing persons report to a recovery, and whether the initial response met the level of urgency that the situation required. Family members have publicly expressed frustration not only with the lack of clear answers, but with what they perceived as delays and inconsistencies in how information was handled. In cases involving minors, especially under circumstances where they are taken without parental permission, timing is critical. And any delay, whether in reporting, response, or coordination, can have significant consequences. This aspect of the case became part of the broader conversation, extending beyond what happened to Quawan himself and into how similar cases or approached more generally. From an investigative standpoint, the case sits at the intersection of medical findings, witness statements, and environmental factors, each of which offers part of the picture but not necessarily a complete one. Drowning as a cause of death can sometimes obscure preceding events, particularly if there are questions about how an individual entered the water or whether they were able to do so on their own. Without clear, corroborated timelines and with limited publicly available forensic detail, the case remains one where interpretation plays a significant role and where different perspectives continue to exist regarding what happened and why. The public response to Quawan Charles's death was immediate and widespread, with community members organizing protests, demanding further investigation, and calling attention to what they believed were unanswered questions and inconsistencies. His case became part of a larger conversation about missing persons, investigative practices, and the disparities that can exist in how cases are handled and perceived. For his family, however, the focus has remained consistent. Understanding exactly what happened in the hours between when he left home and when he was found, and ensuring that any individuals responsible are held accountable if wrongdoing occurred. What makes this case particularly difficult is not just the loss of a young life, but the uncertainty that surrounds it. The official explanation provides one perspective, but the concerns raised by the family and community highlight areas where clarity is still being sought. In that space between conclusion and doubt, the case continues to exist, not fully resolved in the eyes of the family and most affected. The central questions remain. How did Quawan Charles end up in that location? What happened in the time he went missing? And are all the details of that timeline fully understood? And until those questions are answered in a way that satisfies both investigators and the family, the case will continue to be discussed, examined, and remembered as one where the full story may not yet have been told. If you have any information on this case, please contact Iberia Parish Sheriff Department at 337-369-3714. Thank you. Like and subscribe.